Christian nationalists, Silicon Valley versus the Oman Wall Street, a city versus countryside conflict. Do you believe it will result in separation of the unit into multiple factions? Okay, so if you look at the history of the Roman Republic, once a civil war starts, it almost never ends. Okay, that's just the nature of American society, where America is so vast and people there are so energetic and ambitious that once a civil war starts, it's very unlikely that it will ever stop, okay? Maybe the intensity will shift over time, but you will have civil war for the next few hundred years, okay? And the question then is, who triumphs? Okay, so if you just use our game theory formula, okay, of cohesion, energy, and openness, and you ask yourself, okay, let's just look at American society and ask yourself, which state has all three? The answer is Texas, okay? And this is pretty clear. If you just look at the 50 states and which state is the most dynamic, which is the most energetic, the most open-minded, it's gonna be Texas. California, New York are gonna suffer in a civil war. The economies will suffer a great deal, the societies will suffer a great deal. Texas will emerge as a clear winner in any conflict, okay? And with Texas, you also have Christian nationalists. And AI, okay? Why Christian nationalists? Because Christian nationalists is actually a coherent philosophy. It's coherent. It has a direction, it has a strategy, it has a purpose. Okay, so I think Christian nationalists will also win out. And then AI will win out because AI can provide the technological support to Christian nationalists, okay? So if you are working in Texas, if you live in Texas, and if you work in AI, and you're a Christian nationalist, well, you're gonna be a big winner of this civil war, okay? And if you're the opposite, okay? If you are maybe living in New York or California, and you work and you are maybe an atheist, and you, I don't know, work in arts, I don't know, well, you're gonna be a clear loser in this war, okay? Often these, what's called professional managerial elite, managerial elite living on the coast, these guys are done, okay? Completely useless, cost too much money, contributes nothing to society. These guys are just done, all right? All right, how does an individual survive for what's coming? Family and community, guys, okay? Forget the fact that you are an individual. Leave that behind. You will not survive as an individual. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how prepared you are. You might have a bunker. I don't know. I don't care, okay? But you have to focus on family and community if you are to survive the new world. All right. All right. Do you think Iran should have nuclear weapons? No. The worst thing Iran can do at this point is develop a nuclear weapon. Iran can at most have 10 nuclear weapons. America has 1,000. There's one way for Iran to lose this war really quickly, and it's to threaten America with a nuclear weapon, because that gives America the justification to use its nuclear arsenal, okay? But the other problem, and this is actually more important problem, is the idea of complacency. Where if you think you have nuclear weapons, if you have nuclear weapons, you think I'm safe, I don't have to worry about anything. No, no, no. It's much better to be creative and resilient and open-minded, okay? So if you don't have nuclear weapons, you're always under threat, right? That forces your people in your society to constantly think about how to be strategic, all right? So nuclear weapons is a bad thing, it's not a good thing. All right, Pax Judaica. Doesn't Saudi Arabia see that coming? Why would they allow that to happen? Well, because for Saudi Arabia, what matters is first defeating Iran. Because the strategy is, I defeat Iran, then I'm master of the Muslim world. So I can unite all the 2 billion Muslims in the world behind me to defeat Israel, okay? So from a perspective of the GCC and Saudi Arabia, Iran is a much bigger threat than Israel. Why hasn't the GCC said anything about what's happening in Palestine and Lebanon? The GCC are corrupt vassal states of America. All right, it's not hard. These are all run by the CIA. If Trump is a strategic genius, why did he authorize the insane and stupid failed mission to steal uranium? Okay, all right, this is a really good question. And the answer is this. Trump is a genius at politics. He's a genius at screwing over his enemies and accumulating power for himself. He is not a military genius, okay? Trump is a genius at controlling his base. Trump is a genius at being a TV star. He's not a genius at geopolitics. Okay, these things don't have to be the same. All right, how can Israel sustain a global empire when their religious leaders view the physical destruction of their own cities as a spiritual victory? Okay. It's not that hard to rebuild an economy and a city. It's not, okay? What is hard, though, is to develop the spiritual cohesion of a people, to make them believe in something so that they're willing to die for it, okay? That's what matters, all right? Destroying a city, you can rebuild in 5 years' time. It's not that hard. Just hire the Chinese to do it, okay? On nuclear taboos, why would they respect a rational escalation ladder to avoid using nukes? Okay, that's a really good question. If these people are religious and they're fanatical and they're crazy, why do they care about nukes? And the answer is they don't care about nukes. They think this world is fake, okay? But the problem is that nuclear weapons, there are institutional constraints and restraints on the use of nuclear weapons. Okay, so there's this myth that Donald Trump can just press one button and all the nukes will go flying. That's not how it works, okay? There are lots of subtle constraints on the president, okay? He has to go get the nuclear football, then someone has to open for him, and then he can press a button. But if people think Donald Trump is crazy, I guarantee you that nuclear football guy is going to run away, okay? There's so many taboos against the use of nuclear weapons. Again, I keep on saying this, but if nuclear weapons are used in this war, we are completely screwed, okay? I don't think nuclear weapons will be used in this war. All right, if mass organization are the primary causes of imperial decay, why are unlimited population, unlimited land set as reasons the US technet will succeed? Okay, all right. Look, I said the US technet is the plan. I didn't say it would succeed. Yes, I understand. America can take over all of North America. It can occupy Canada. It can occupy Mexico, Cuba. But when it does that, it's going to create a lot of insurgencies. It's going to create a lot of conflict. So it will be a dumpster fire, okay? Just because you are able to accomplish it doesn't mean you should accomplish it. It doesn't mean it'll be successful. Immigration trap. Why is conforming to rules and working hard considered playing the game wrong if high confidence required for resilience in the coming era of resource scarcity? Look, if the game is fair, you want to conform to rules and you want to work hard. But if there's an elite that is parasitic, that is rent-seeking, then by working hard, you're just transferring your energy to the elite. Okay? So before, maybe 20 years ago, America was a place that was very fair. And so if you just worked hard and played by rules, you would succeed. This is no longer true where it's basically an oligarchy and where a few people control all the power, okay? All right. Iranians are growing less religious. And so as this war becomes as this war continues, the framework of Shia martyrdom will energize Iranians to become more cohesive? And the answer is yes. One outcome of this war that we should expect is that Iranian society becomes much more religious, much more fanatical, all right? And one reason is that the Americans are intent on destroying Iranian urban centers like Tehran, okay? So the Americans and the Israelis are bombing railway networks that connect Tehran to the countryside, and so Tehran might not have access to food, in which case Tehran might disappear as a city. In that case, when people are in desperate need, they turn to religion for comfort, okay? And then they have this eschatological drive. So yes, we can expect Iran to become much more eschatological as this war continues. Okay, the US implements the draft, Generation Z refuses, so you have a civil war, then where's the US military going to get its soldiers? Okay, that's a good question, and the answer is illegal immigrants, okay? There are about 20 million illegal immigrants in America. They can be arrested and they can be conscripted, okay? So that's the solution to this problem because as he points out, young people are not gonna fight in this war because it's suicidal. All right. What if you can make cheap drones, okay? So I say, you know, the way to counter cheap drones is with a ground invasion, but America can make even cheaper drones, then wouldn't that solve the problem? And yeah, so the answer is this. We become too obsessed with technology. We think that technology can solve all the problems. And what you don't understand, what people don't appreciate is that technology is built on people, okay? Technology is meant to complement people, to enhance the skills of people. Technology is not designed to replace people. That's the issue that America is facing in this war, where America thinks that by using sophisticated air defense, by using super carriers, by using fighter jets that are stealth, we can reduce civilian casualties and win the war. And it's turning out not to be the case. Why? Because people are much more creative, much more resilient, and much more determined than technology, okay? So if you have a group of people together, they're always gonna figure out a way to defeat your technology. So imagine this, okay? You build a robot, and this robot is invincible. Lots of machine guns, nighttime vision, 360 vision, okay? If I fight this robot one-to-one, I'm dead, right? But I'm a human being, I'm not stupid, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lure this robot into a dark forest or a cave where the robot's gonna stumble and where I can maybe throw a rock or pour water on it, okay? But because technology, it's static, people are dynamic and creative, okay? And spontaneous. So that's what makes people so wonderful, because we humans, we're dynamic, we're creative, we're spontaneous. We're not afraid to die for what we believe in. A robot is just gonna do what a robot's gonna do. So it's completely predictable. We are not predictable, okay? That's why if you insist on using technology and drones as your main military strategy, you will lose this war. You have to commit your people to total war. You have to find people who are willing to die for what they believe in, and then you'll win this war. And that's why I believe that ultimately America will lose this war in Iran because American people don't have the political will to fight this war. I don't care how much money you put in this war. You can spend $100 trillion. I don't care. I don't care how much technology you have. You're still going to lose this war unless you're able to galvanize the patriotism and political will of your people. Okay? All right. Israel will be humbled. Doesn't that change Pax Judaica? Okay, all right. Okay, so Pax Judaica and Israel are not the same thing. Pax Judaica is a project of transnational capital. So think of Israel as the host, Pax Judaica as the parasite, okay? And the same thing happened in America, where at the end of the 19th century, you have all this transnational capital coming into America through Wall Street and through manufacturing, the economy. And they were able to control America through the Federal Reserve, okay? So transnational capital is the parasite, America is the host. So in this situation, Israel is the host, and Pax Judaica will be the parasite, or transnational capital. Okay? So it doesn't matter what happens to Israel. They can bomb Israel to smithereens. It doesn't matter, who cares? Because transnational capital can come into the region, hire Chinese, Filipinos, Indians to rebuild Israel. Okay? Is the war going to transfer wealth from the old to the young in the US or worsen it? Okay. Yeah, this is an excellent question. This is really a key question if you really understand geopolitics. The answer is, as this war continues, as chaos continues throughout the world, more money will be transferred to the old than to the young, okay? So all this inequality, this generational inequality that we're seeing in America will worsen. And the reason why is that in a time of chaos, in a time of conflict, okay, capital always triumphs, okay? And the reason why is that capital is able to foresee risk, to distribute risk properly, and take advantage of risk, okay? If I have $1 trillion, it's almost impossible for me to lose my money, and I can make more money, okay? So imagine a situation where, okay, I have $1 trillion, I'll invest $1 billion in America, $1 billion in Iran, $1 billion in Israel. I can't possibly lose this war, okay? But if you have like $1,000, I guarantee you're gonna lose all your money. And the reality right now is that the old, not all the old, but a minority of the oligarchy have all the capital, and the young have nothing, okay? So it's the young who will give up all their money to the old, and it's the young who will be asked to die in the Middle East so that the old can maintain their power, okay? And that's a historical pattern. Civil War, AI, Republicans, finance, Democrats. Okay, absolutely correct in that these categories are not that simple. It's a very fluid situation where AI is going to bet on both Democrats and Republicans. Finance is going to bet both on Republicans and Democrats. But for the sake of my analysis, I create these categories so that I can project into the future. I can extrapolate into the future. But you're absolutely right in that these categories are problematic, okay? All right. America's plan is to weaken the global economy by letting the war drag on. If Iran wants the U.S. to leave, how can Israel still achieve its plan? Okay, first question. Is America trying to slowly weaken the global economy by letting the war drag on? And the answer is, it's not intentional, but it's a consequence. Meaning America can suffer the consequence of the collapse of the global economy because America is self-sufficient and it can always retreat back into its fortress. It's the global economy that will suffer. So it will seem in hindsight that America had this plan all along, when in reality it's just because no matter what America does, it always wins. Okay? That's a benefit of being America. No matter what happens, you always win. All right? Iran wants the US to leave, but then how can Israel achieve the Greater Israel Project? And the answer is, Israel will not let the US leave, okay? I mean, Israel right now is a parasite, US is the host. Once US leaves, Israel becomes a host, Pax Judaica, transnational capital becomes a parasite, okay? So there's no way the US is gonna leave the GCC region. Will the 2-week ceasefire hold? No, okay? No. Forget about the ceasefire. It's all theater. And like, think about who is negotiating the ceasefire. You have Jared Kushner and you have Steve Witkoff. The same two guys that screw up the negotiations which led to this war in Oman, okay? And then, where is this taking place? It's taking place in Pakistan, which is a vassal state of the United States. So these negotiations will go nowhere. All right. How do you fit variables and general human unpredictability in your game theory model? Yeah, that's a really good question, okay? And the answer is I don't use math. It's impossible to model random human behavior. It's just impossible. Maybe if I had like 1 million years of data, I could do that, but I can't do that. I have like a few hundred years of data. So I don't even use math. I know it's game theory, I know you're supposed to use math, but I would be constrained by math, okay? So I use a lot of intuition, I use a lot of doubt, I use a lot of debate, okay? So doubt, debate, imagination. How would Israel, okay, so Israel is a pariah state. How can it achieve Pax Judaica? Okay, so this is confusing for people, but like public opinion does not matter in geopolitics. Rome was this genocidal state. No one cared. It didn't care. It still became the empire that lasted for 1,000 years, okay? Even today, we still worship Rome. The Aztecs were known for human sacrifice. Didn't matter. They still became the empire of Mexico. The British, they created all these wars in Europe. They enslaved the Indian population and destroyed their economy and stole trillions of dollars from them. They addicted Chinese to opium. Do we ever talk about this? I mean, like, if we had an opinion poll back in the 1850s, I think most of the world would be like, the British Empire is evil. They're genocidal. We still worship the British Empire today, okay? So public opinion does not matter. We've come to this delusion that our opinions matter in geopolitics. It doesn't matter in geopolitics. What matters is power, okay? Oh, that's it, guys. Wow. Oh, well, okay. All right, we did it, guys. We did a midterm, okay? So hopefully I did well on this midterm. We'll also have a final examination, so I look forward to that. But thank you for the questions, and we will take a 1-week break next week, and then we'll come back and continue game theory and our analysis of the US-Iran war. So any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have like 2 main questions, and Vincent also sent me some of his questions. My first question is about the global economy. Like in one previous discussion, you argued that the US-centric global economic system would collapse after the Iran war, leading to the remilitarization of various nations and severely disrupting the global trade. However, why a new global economic system created one or a few countries will not emerge? Because even though this system would inevitably create significant inequality among the countries, it would still bring substantial wealth and economic benefits to participating nations. Why create which I think will create motivation for these countries to build it.
Okay.
And historically, after the age of explorations, I think the collapse of each imperial systems lead to the rise of the new empires. For example, the Spanish Maritimes collapsed and the British Empire gradually replaced. And after the World War I and II, the American became the empire and that replaced the British. So why won't this happen again?
Okay. So the basis of the global economy is the US dollar. Okay? So what is the US dollar? The US dollar is basically a contract system. Okay? So when I use US dollar, basically it's a contract that our trade will be honored, okay? Right? But with a contract system, you also need an enforcement mechanism. Okay? Meaning, look, if you don't honor the contract, then someone has to come beat you up, right? Otherwise, you'll just ignore the contract. So that's what the US military is for. All right. Now, there's certain problems with this system. The first problem is that it's actually very costly to create a contract system. Okay, why? Because you're absorbing all the risk. Okay? So you're the US economy, you print US dollars to enable the world to trade with each other. Okay, but when you do that, you are collecting a tax, but at the same time, it's putting tremendous strain on your economy. Okay, because this leads to financialization, which is just risk and speculation. Okay, so all this excess money is being created around the world, and you have to absorb it into your economy, which causes inflation, which causes things to be unaffordable to your people. All right, so that's the first problem, okay? It's really expensive on the population. The population in America must absorb the cost of excess liquidity in the world. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. The second problem is the military. The military must be willing to fight any wars around the world at any time. Okay? So the question then is there any nation in the world besides America that's one, willing to absorb the cost of creating a contract system, being the global reserve currency, and number two, that's willing to fight a war to enforce this mechanism anytime, anywhere in the world? And the answer is no, hell no, okay? This system is retarded. It is unbelievable that America agreed to the system in the first place. And most Americans would say, well, we just got stuck with this system. And certain people benefited from the system, but most people don't actually benefit from the system. So the idea that anyone is going to come and say, oh, we'll just take over the system, whether it be Russia or China, that's just retarded, okay? No one's going to replace America. So the global economy is just going to fracture. Because again, no one's willing to accept the cost to be the global reserve currency. It's just too expensive. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
But so why cannot some regional powerful country like Japan and German, as you mentioned before, or American, they form into a group that will together build a global economic systems?
Because ultimately, you have to resolve the issue of benefit, okay? Okay? We have to negotiate who benefits. Okay, doesn't make sense. And it's hard for nation states to figure that out. It's much easier to have an empire. It's much easier for me to impose my power onto you. But for us to work together peacefully, maybe for a couple of years, okay? But it's very unsustainable. All right? Why? Because of domestic concerns. Because your population will want to maximize the benefit from this relationship. Okay?
And my second question is about the value of the culture of the world. As we discussed before, this world today is highly materialistic, with money and the pursuit of material possessions becoming the main driving forces in society. And in your vision of in the future, believe that people will place greater emphasis on religion and spiritual life. But how exactly will this transformation occur? Because if this will occur through war or suffering, then as in history we go through World War I and World War II, many people die and many tragedy happen. But it seems that this materialistic value doesn't change, because that's what we have have today?
Okay, so I didn't say everyone will experience this transformation. What I'm saying is that those who undergo the transformation will most likely survive the coming world collapse. Okay, so you can choose to say, like, I want to be materialistic. You can do that, and most people will choose to continue to want to be materialistic, but they won't survive. Okay, and those who do undergo the transformation will survive. And why do they undergo the transformation? Because they see the world collapsing around them, and they are looking for comfort. They're looking for a story. They're looking for an explanation, and so they turn to religion. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and the reality is that, look, in the coming 50 years of all this chaos and war, I would say 90% of humanity will be wiped out. And a lot of these people will be because they refuse to adapt to the new world. They refuse to believe that a new world is coming and they should prepare for it. Okay, they refuse to change their minds. Okay, any more questions?
I have some questions of Vincent, like you want me to ask.
Maybe two, okay?
Okay, yeah. The first is, like, he had some question about ours as an individuals in this world. He said that if our efforts are defined based on the consequentialism of secret society and other definitions, what is the significance of our efforts? Isn't it still exacerbating the secret society? Do we have a way to define our own value? Or can we only live in the eye of others?
Yeah, it's absolutely pointless to worry about secret societies. It's absolutely pointless to worry about others. What you can do is live your life to the best of your ability. Okay? You can be focused on learning, on developing yourself spiritually and intellectually and emotionally. You can be focused on reading books, on asking questions, okay? And if you do that, you'll be fine. So stop worrying about secret societies, stop worrying about the end of the world, and just focus on your own personal transformation, okay? All right,
So,
one more.
Another question is related to the Chinese students. He said that, how do you think Chinese students who are currently studying in the United States will be perceived in the future, while Chinese people discriminate against U.S. American students in the future?
Look, the reality is that the age of globalization is over. The idea that Chinese students learn English, hop on a plane, go to America to study for 4 years, and come back and get a good job, that era is over. And quite honestly, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know why Chinese students do this in the first place. Okay? Again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that China is not a real nation state. It's just a projection, a mirage created by the global economy. But I mean, Chinese students now are focused on getting the degree in America. It's just a piece of paper. Chinese students don't care enough about an education, about learning. Okay, that's a great myth about Chinese students in this world, where Chinese students are the best in the world because Chinese students love learning and are disciplined. That's not true. Chinese students are extremely motivated. They care about the grades. They care about the degree. Once you take that away from Chinese students don't even know what to do. They play video games every day. They just sit around and do nothing. Okay? So if Chinese students are to thrive in the future, they need to learn passion. They need to learn intrinsic motivation. They need to love learning for itself. All right? Okay. All right. So that is it. Thank you for the midterm. And I will see everyone the week after. Okay? So we're taking a break next week.